It was a Thursday, late enough in the morning that most people had already gone to work. The laundromat across the street hummed with the steady spin of machines. I was folding a t-shirt one-handed, phone in the other, staring at a message I'd typed but couldn't send. Just a, "Hey, how are you?" to nobody in particular. I deleted it, shoved the phone back into my pocket, and shook out the next shirt. That's when she came in. She wasn't carrying laundry, just a thermos tucked under her arm, a book in her hand. She lived upstairs, in the apartment above mine. I'd seen her maybe half a dozen times, on the stairs, checking her mailbox, once watering the little pot of basil on her balcony. Mid-40s, maybe? Dark hair tied loosely at her neck. Not the kind of person you think about until you catch yourself staring. "Busy morning," she said, glancing at the rows of tumbling clothes. I nodded. "Guess everyone else was more prepared than me." A smile flickered at the corner of her mouth, like she wasn't sure if it should stay or not. She sat in the plastic chair across from me and cracked open her book. I pretended to keep folding. But my eyes kept drifting, to the way she smoothed the page with her thumb, the way her foot tapped once, then stopped. My dryer beeped. Too loud in the quiet room. I pulled the warm clothes into the basket, shook them out piece by piece. She looked up. "College?" she asked, tilting her chin at the faded university logo on my sweatshirt. "Dropped out," I said before I could think better of it. My voice came out flat. I stuffed the sweatshirt deeper in the basket. She didn't push, didn't ask why. Just gave this small nod, like she knew better than to make it a big deal. Silence again. The sound of the page turning. The hum of dryers. When I was done, I sat back, hands on my knees, not sure if I should leave. She was still there, sipping from her thermos now. The steam fogged her glasses. "You always come here this time?" she asked. I shrugged. "Usually. It's quieter." "Smart," she said, half smiling. It wasn't much, but it landed heavy. Like she'd noticed me before, maybe. Or maybe I wanted her to have noticed. My phone buzzed in my pocket, another blank notification, nothing important. I didn't check it. She was watching the dryer window now, clothes tumbling in slow circles. I found myself watching with her, like maybe it meant something. After a minute she stood. Book tucked under her arm again. "Well," she said, adjusting the strap of her bag. "See you around." I nodded, gripping the edge of the basket too tight. "Yeah. See you." She left, the doors swinging shut behind her. I sat there another 10 minutes, staring at the dryer even though my clothes were done. Back home, I set the basket down by the couch. My phone lit up on the table. A text. Not from anyone I expected. It was her. "If you don't have plans later, stop by. I made too much soup." The message sat there, quiet and impossible. I read it once, twice, then set the phone face down. My hands were still warm from the dryer, but something else kept them shaking. I stood outside her door longer than I should have. The text still glowed in my head, soup waiting on the other side of the wood panel. I knocked once, soft, almost hoping she wouldn't hear. But she did. "Come in," she called. Her apartment smelled like thyme and something warm simmering on the stove. She wore an oversized cardigan, sleeves half covering her hands. The light inside was softer than I expected, lamps, not the ceiling bulb, and a small plant hanging crooked near the window. "You came," she said, almost surprised. "Yeah. Didn't feel like cooking tonight." "Good," she murmured. "Neither did I." We ate at her small kitchen table. She slid me a bowl, steam curling between us. The first spoonful was too hot, but I didn't say anything. She noticed anyway. "Sorry. Should have warned you." I shook my head. "No, it's good." We ate in small clinks of metal on ceramic, the silence stretching but never snapping. At some point, she leaned back, studying me in that way older people do, like they've already decided what part of you matters. "You remind me of my brother," she said suddenly. "He was always showing up at my place when he had nothing else to do. Just sitting around. Not talking much? I laughed, awkward. That sounds about right. He's gone now, she added, almost as an afterthought. I froze with the spoon halfway to my mouth. She didn't look at me, only at the soup. Sorry, I said quietly. She waved it off. Life. The word hung heavy, but she didn't explain. I wanted to ask, but instead I noticed her hands, the way she kept rubbing the tip of her thumb against her ring finger, like something was missing there. I cleared my throat. Do you ever regret staying here? In this building, I mean? She looked up. Something unreadable passed over her face, then softened. Sometimes. Sometimes not. Depends on the day. The answer was simple, but it pressed on me. My own place was just a rented box with peeling paint. I couldn't imagine being here long enough to have a rhythm of regret about it. We sat back in silence, the bowls empty now. She got up, rinsed hers, then mine, moving slowly as though each step carried weight. I watched her. The loose fall of her hair, the cardigan sleeves sliding up her arm. Everything unremarkable and yet impossible to look away from. When she turned back, she caught me staring. What? She asked, half smiling. Nothing, I said too quickly. She stepped closer, drying her hands on a towel. For a second, I thought she might sit again. Instead, she reached out, flicked at my collar where a thread had come loose. Just a small touch, a second long. But it landed deeper than it should have. Her hand lingered half a breath too long, then fell away. I don't know why that moment stayed with me, maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next time I saw her wasn't planned. It never was. I was coming up the stairs, groceries in my arms, when her door opened. She stepped out at the same moment, pulling her cardigan tight against the draft in the hallway. Oh, hi, she said, pausing. I shifted the bag higher on my hip. Hey. We stood there longer than we should have. The stairwell light buzzed overhead. She glanced at the bag. Need a hand? I shook my head, though my grip was slipping. I've got it. Still, she reached out, steadying the bottom of the bag with her palm until we got to my door. Too close. The smell of her perfume faint under the smell of bread and detergent. Inside, I set the bag down too quickly. A carton rolled out, hit the floor, cracked. I muttered something. She crouched first, wiping with the corner of her sleeve before I could grab a towel. You don't have to, it's fine, she cut in. But her hand stopped halfway, and she looked up at me from where she was kneeling. Something in her face, like she was about to say more. She didn't. The silence pressed in. She stood, brushing off her sleeve, backing toward the door. I should let you eat. I didn't want her to go, but I didn't know how to ask her to stay. My throat tightened. Wait, I said, too late, too soft. She froze, hand on the knob. And then, her phone buzzed. A sharp sound in the quiet room. She pulled it out, frowned at the screen. For a second, she looked younger, caught. Then older again, weary. Sorry, she muttered. My daughter. She wants to talk. I hadn't known she had a daughter. The word landed between us like a warning sign. She gave a quick smile, too practiced, and slipped out before I could respond. I didn't see her for days after that. Not in the stairwell, not at the laundromat. Her blinds stayed shut. I told myself it didn't matter, that I barely knew her, that I shouldn't care. Still, I found excuses to linger in the hall. One evening, the kettle on my stove screamed too long before I turned it off. I poured the tea and let it cool untouched. The knock at my door made me spill some. When I opened it, she was there. Hair damp, cardigan sleeves pushed up. Sorry to drop by, she said, eyes flicking past me. But my sink's acting up. Could you? I nodded before she finished. Her kitchen smelled faintly of lemon soap. I bent under the sink, fiddling with the pipe, though I knew nothing about plumbing. She crouched beside me, flashlight steady in her hand. Our shoulders almost touching. Doesn't look too bad, I lied. Her laugh was quiet. Close. You don't know what you're doing, do you? I grinned, embarrassed. Not really. She didn't move away. Neither did I. The flashlight shook slightly in her grip. My hand brushed hers as I reached for the wrench. Not on purpose. Not entirely by accident. We both froze. The silence was loud, everything in it, what we wanted, what we shouldn't. Her eyes lifted, searching mine. For a second I thought, then she pulled her hand back, sharp, as if burned. Maybe I should just call maintenance, she whispered. It was raining, not heavy, just enough to keep the sidewalks shining. I ran into her outside the corner store. She had no umbrella, just her cardigan pulled tight again, hair sticking damp to her cheek. You'll catch a cold, I said, half joking. She gave a small shrug. Already too late, probably. We ended up walking back together. My bag of groceries bumped against my leg, her hands tucked under her arms. The silence felt heavier than the rain. At the bench near our building, she stopped. Not planned, just stopped. The rain pattered on the leaves above us. I shifted, unsure if I should keep going or sit with her. Sit, she said softly, so I did. For a while neither of us spoke. Her eyes followed the traffic, mine followed her. I thought about all the things I wanted to ask, all the things I couldn't. Finally she sighed. You know, I don't usually let people in. Not neighbors. Not anyone really. I kept still, waiting. It's easier that way, she went on. You get older, you learn, keeping distance means fewer regrets. I swallowed. My throat felt dry, though the rain kept falling. Do you regret letting me in? Her head turned quick. Our eyes met. She didn't answer right away. I don't know yet, she said finally. Her voice was steady, but something inside me cracked. I looked down at my hands, clenched tight on my knees. Sometimes I think about what people would say if they knew I was here, eating soup in your kitchen, fixing your sink, sitting here now. She let out a short laugh, but it wasn't humor. It was something closer to pain. They'd probably say the same thing I tell myself every day, don't be stupid. The words cut, though not in the way she meant them. You're not stupid, I said quietly. Silence again. A car splashed through a puddle in the distance. She turned toward me, rain caught on her lashes. You're too young, she whispered. And you're not? The words came out harsher than I intended. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked away, hugging herself tighter. I wanted to take it back. I wanted to say everything else I felt instead, that I thought about her when the kettle screamed too long, that I noticed the missing ring on her finger, that her laugh stayed with me long after the sound faded. But all I managed was, I don't care. Her breath hitched. She turned back slowly, eyes searching mine, as if waiting for me to realize what I just said. We sat like that, the rain steady around us, either moving. Her hand shifted on the bench, just close enough that I could reach it if I dared. My chest ached with the weight of the choice. She didn't move away this time. And then, barely audible, What do you think you're doing? The next morning, her door stayed closed. No footsteps on the stairs, no clink of her thermos at the mailbox. I told myself it was nothing. People had their own lives. But by the third day, the quiet started pressing in. I stopped by the laundromat, lingered longer than I needed, folding the same t-shirt 3 times. Nothing. When I finally saw her again, it wasn't how I expected. She was at the curb, suitcase by her feet, phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was sharp, practiced, not the voice she used with me. I told you I can't right now. She needs me. I slowed, pretending to check my mailbox. She glanced up, caught my eye, then quickly turned away. A rideshare pulled up. She slid her phone into her pocket and lifted the suitcase herself. I almost stepped forward, almost, but her expression was closed off. Like the night on the bench hadn't happened. Everything okay? I asked, too careful. She hesitated, then nodded. Just family. I'll be gone a few days. I wanted to ask where. Who she was. But I didn't. I just nodded, and she was gone, car taillights disappearing down the street. The days blurred. I found myself pacing in my apartment, checking my phone though no message came. I typed one more than once. Hope you're alright. Do you need anything? When are you back? Each one stayed unsent. By the time she returned, something was different. She passed me in the hallway, carrying groceries. No eye contact, no pause. Just a polite, "Hey." I froze in the doorway, half expecting her to stop, to smile the way she used to. She didn't. That night, I heard voices upstairs. A younger one, female. Her daughter, I guessed. The pieces fit together too easily now. The missing ring, the way she said she needs me. Divorce, maybe? Or worse. I sat at my kitchen table, the kettle cooling without being poured. I told myself it wasn't my business. Still, my chest ached with questions. The next day, she passed me again in the stairwell, this time with her daughter beside her. College-aged, close to mine. Their laughter bounced off the narrow walls. She introduced me quickly. "This is my neighbor," then moved on. The distance in her voice stung more than it should have. I didn't knock on her door that week. I didn't send the message sitting in my drafts. I sat in the laundromat again, folding shirts too neatly, waiting for a door to open that stayed closed. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. It was late when I heard the knock. A soft one, like she wasn't sure she should even be there. I opened the door. She stood in the hallway, cardigan wrapped tight, hair loose around her face. Her eyes were tired in the way that comes from more than lack of sleep. "Sorry," she said, voice low. "I didn't want to wake you." "You didn't." She hesitated, then stepped past me. I closed the door and followed her to the kitchen. She sat at the table, the same chair she'd used the night of the soup. For a moment, it felt like nothing had changed. But everything had. She kept her hands folded, thumbs moving against each other. "She left today. My daughter. Back to school." I nodded, waiting. I thought having her here would make me feel less alone. Instead, it just made me realize how much time I've lost. How much I've wasted. Her voice cracked on the last word. I wanted to reach for her hand, but I didn't. "You haven't wasted anything," I said. It sounded weak, even to me. She gave a thin smile. "You're kind. But you don't know." Silence stretched. The hum of the fridge filled the room. Finally, I spoke. "You've been pulling away." Her eyes lifted, sharp. Then softer. "Because I'm afraid." "Of me?" "No. Of what I'll do if I'm not careful." The words sat heavy between us. I could feel my pulse in my throat. "I don't want to be careful," I admitted. Her breath caught. She leaned back, studying me like she wasn't sure if I meant it. I did. My palms were damp against my knees, but I held her gaze. For a long time, she didn't move. Then she exhaled, slow. "You make me forget myself. That's dangerous." I swallowed. "Maybe forgetting isn't always bad." She closed her eyes, shook her head slightly, as if fighting herself. Then, quietly, "Do you know what you're asking?" "Yes." My voice was steadier than I felt. "I'm asking you not to pretend anymore." The air between us tightened. She finally unfolded her hands, let them rest on the table. I reached across, slowly, giving her space to pull away. She didn't. Our fingers touched, light, almost nothing, but more than anything else had been. Her eyes shimmered in the low light. "This can't be simple," she whispered. "I'm not asking for simple." A pause. Then she let out the faintest laugh, half broken, half relieved. Her thumb brushed over mine, once. Barely there. "Okay," she said. Just that. Nothing more. And somehow it was everything. The weeks after that night didn't change everything at once. There were no sweeping gestures, no sudden declarations. Just small shifts. I started keeping tea in the cupboard, the kind she liked. She stopped locking her door when she went downstairs to check the mail. Sometimes I'd hear her kettle whistle too long, and by the time I knocked, she'd be waiting with 2 cups already poured. We fell into a rhythm. Not every day, not even predictable. But enough. A bench walk after groceries. A shared meal when one of us cooked too much. Quiet evenings where nothing was said, and nothing had to be. Her daughter came back once, for a weekend. I kept my distance then, folding laundry I didn't need to fold, sitting at the laundromat until closing. When I returned, there was soup left outside my door with a note, "Thank you for understanding." It wasn't perfect. Sometimes she pulled back, got lost in her thoughts. Sometimes I caught myself wondering if I was just filling a gap in her life. But then there would be moments, a glance across the table, her hand brushing mine when passing the salt, that told me it was more. One evening, we found ourselves on the same bench near the building, the one where she'd once asked, "What do you think you're doing?" The rain had passed hours earlier, leaving the air cool, the pavement still shining. She leaned back, cardigan wrapped around her, eyes on the traffic. "Do you ever think about that first time? The laundromat?" I smiled. "You were pretending to read." Her lips curved, almost guilty. "Maybe. And you folded that shirt 3 times. We sat in the memory, letting it settle between us. At 8:47 p.m., the bus rumbled past, its headlights sweeping over us. She watched it go, then turned, eyes softer than the streetlight glow. "I don't regret it," she said quietly. I didn't answer right away. Just reached for her hand, the same way I had at the table weeks ago. This time, she didn't just let me, she held on. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't forever. But it was real. Later, back in her kitchen, she poured us both tea. The steam curled between us, familiar now. I watched her push her glasses up the bridge of her nose, the same way she had that first day. She caught me staring, raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Nothing," I said, shaking my head. But inside I knew. It was everything. I didn't feel heartbroken anymore. I didn't feel paused. I felt, here. With her. And that was enough. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?